The Zephyrian council chambers buzzed with desperate voices as Ambassador Kethera stood before the assembled representatives of 12 different species. Her blue-scaled hands trembled as she held the datapad containing the grim reports from her homeworld. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "The Vrex swarm is broken through our outer defenses. Our military estimates give us no more than 47 standard cycles before complete planetary annihilation." The chamber fell silent. Even the usually chattering Piccolin delegation stopped their rapid-fire conversations. The Vrex were known throughout the galaxy as an unstoppable force of destruction, consuming everything in their path like a plague of metal locusts. General Thaxon of the Altarian fleet leaned forward in his hover seat, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Ambassador Kithura, while the Galactic Federation sympathizes with Zephyria's plight, we must be realistic about our capabilities. The Vrex have destroyed 17 civilizations in the past century. No military force has successfully stopped them. But surely the combined fleets of the Federation could," Kethera started, but was cut off by a dismissive gesture from Chancellor Vex of the Dominion Worlds. "The mathematics are simple," Chancellor Vex stated coldly, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. "The Vrex swarm currently numbers approximately 50 million vessels. The combined Federation fleet barely reaches 2 million ships. Engagement would result in total destruction of Federation forces with minimal impact on the swarm." Kethera felt her heart sinking. She had traveled across half the galaxy, burning through their remaining fuel reserves, hoping against hope that the Great Galactic Federation would offer salvation. Instead, she found only cold calculations and political hesitation. "There must be something," she pleaded. "Some weapon, some strategy, some ally we haven't considered. My people, there are 12 billion souls on Zephyria. We have children, families, entire cultures that will be lost forever." The counselor from the Ethereal Collective, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, pulsed with sympathetic colors. "We understand your pain, Ambassador. The loss of any civilization diminishes us all. However, the Vrex operate beyond conventional warfare. They adapt to every strategy, overcome every defense, and learn from every encounter. This is why they remain undefeated." "What about the restricted databases?" asked Representative Quinn of the Pacifican Union, her tentacles writhing nervously. "Are there any species listed that might possess unconventional capabilities?" General Thaxon accessed his command console with practiced efficiency, scanning military databases now. His expression grew more grim as he read. "The Thorgon Imperium fell 3 centuries ago. The Warsinger Collective was exterminated by the Plague of Silence. The Crystal Dynasties shattered themselves in civil war. Every species known for exceptional military prowess is either extinct or scattered." "Wait," interrupted Datakeeper Zan of the Archive Worlds, her cybernetic implants glowing as she interfaced directly with the central database. "There is one entry in the restricted files. A species designated as Extreme Caution, Deathworld Origin." The chamber stirred with interest. Deathworld species were legendary, theoretical beings that evolved on planets so hostile that they developed capabilities far beyond normal biological limits. Most scholars consider them myths. "Species designation?" General Thaxon inquired. "Humans. Star System Sol, 3rd planet designated Earth. Status listed as contact prohibited due to extreme danger classification." Chancellor Vex's mechanical voice carried skepticism. "Datakeeper, Zan, surely you don't suggest we contact a species so dangerous that the Federation itself prohibits interaction?" "The file indicates they possess unprecedented adaptive combat capabilities and alarming technological advancement rate," Zan continued reading. "First contact was made 200 standard years ago by a Corvian exploration vessel." "What happened to the Corvian vessel?" Kethera asked, grasping at this new thread of hope. "It returned safely, but the report was immediately classified. The only public information is that humans were deemed too unpredictable for standard diplomatic protocols. General Thaxon pulled up star charts on the main display. The Sol system is located in what we consider the galactic frontier, 67 light-years from a nearest Federation outpost. If this species is as dangerous as the files suggest, approaching them could be catastrophic. More catastrophic than the complete annihilation of my people. General, with respect, we have exhausted every conventional option. If there exists even the slightest possibility that these humans could help, don't we owe it to the billions of innocent lives to try? The ethereal collective representative pulsed with deep orange hues, indicating contemplation. The philosophical question becomes, is it ethical to potentially unleash an unknown danger upon a galaxy to save one world? The Vreks are already in unleashed danger, Kethera replied firmly. They won't stop with Zephyria. The swarm will continue consuming world after world until nothing remains. Perhaps it's time to fight unpredictability with unpredictability. Representative Quinn's tentacles had stilled, always a sign of deep thought among her species. There is precedent for desperate measures. The liberation of Sanctuary Prime required unconventional allies. The defeat of the Shadow Syndicate came only through methods the Federation normally wouldn't condone. Those situations were different, Chancellor Vex objected. We had some knowledge of our allies' capabilities. These humans are completely unknown. For all we know, they could be worse than the Vreks. Impossible, General Thaxon stated flatly. The Vreks consume entire biospheres. They leave nothing alive. No species could be worse. Datakeeper Zan's implants flickered as she accessed deeper files. I'm finding additional fragments in the archaeological databases. There are references to humans in several ancient texts, but they're inconsistent. Some describe them as great warriors, others as peaceful explorers, still others as, the translation is unclear, but something like builders of the impossible. Myths and legends, Chancellor Vex dismissed. Perhaps, Zan acknowledged, but myths often contain kernels of truth. The interesting pattern is that human references appear in databases from species that had no contact with each other across different time periods in various regions of the galaxy. Kethera felt a spark of something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. It's as if they've been encountered before multiple times, but the records were suppressed or lost. Or, General Thaxon said grimly, the species that encountered them didn't survive to properly document the meetings. The chamber fell into contemplative silence. The weight of decision hung heavy in the recycled air. Kethera looked around at the assembled representatives, reading the mixture of fear, curiosity, and desperate calculation in their alien features. Finally, the senior representative of the Federation, Elder Morth of the Ancient Reach, spoke. His voice carried the authority of millennia of experience. Ambassador Kethera, the Federation cannot officially endorse contact with a prohibited species. However, we also cannot stand by and watch an entire civilization perish without exhausting every possibility. Elder Morth's next words were carefully chosen. Should a single ambassador, acting independently and without Federation support, choose to investigate this possibility, such action would be beyond our jurisdiction to prevent. The message was clear. They wouldn't help, but they wouldn't stop her either. Kitara sitrektenet herschuldes. I understand, Elder Morth. I request immediate permission to depart Federation space. Granted, Elder Morth replied solemnly. May the stars guide you, Ambassador. For all our sakes. As the council session ended, General Thaxon approached Kethera privately. Ambassador, I cannot provide official assistance, but I can offer some unofficial advice. If you're truly going to attempt contact with these humans, take a fast ship. If they prove hostile, you'll want the ability to escape quickly. And if they prove helpful? Kethera asked. General Thaxon's 4 eyes blinked in the pattern his species used to indicate uncertainty. Then, may the universe help us all understand what we've unleashed. 3 standard hours later, Kethera's diplomatic vessel broke Federation space boundaries, heading toward the unknown regions where Earth waited. Behind her, 12 billion Zephyrians continued their desperate preparations for the approaching storm. Ahead lay a species so dangerous that the galaxy's greatest civilization had deemed them untouchable. As her ship engaged faster-than-light drive, Kythera whispered a prayer to the ancient star spirits of her people. She was either flying toward salvation or toward a force that might doom them all more swiftly than the Vrex ever could. In the depths of space, the Vrex swarm continued its relentless approach to Zephyria, their biomechanical ships pulsing with hunger for another world to devour. They had no knowledge of the desperate gambit being played 43 light-years away, where a single ambassador raced toward a blue world orbiting a yellow star. The fate of civilizations hung in the balance, and at the center of it all waited humanity, blissfully unaware that they were about to receive the most important visitor in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching the sensor readings with growing concern. The unknown vessel had appeared at the edge of their solar system 12 hours ago, broadcasting what their xenolinguistics department had identified as a peaceful contact protocol in 17 different languages. Analysis complete, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez from the communication station. The vessel is definitely alien in origin, but its approach patterns and communication attempts indicate non-hostile intent. They've been broadcasting the same message repeatedly. What does it say? Chin asked, her experience in the Solar Defense Force having taught her that non-hostile didn't necessarily mean safe. Roughly translated, peaceful diplomatic mission seeks audience with human leadership regarding urgent galactic crisis. Request permission for formal contact under interstellar law. They're also transmitting what appears to be credentials from something called the Galactic Federation. Chun frowned. Earth had maintained strict isolation protocols since the disastrous first contact incident with the Corvian Empire 2 centuries earlier. That encounter had nearly resulted in humanity being enslaved as a primitive species until a small fleet of human ships had demonstrated that primitiveness was relative. Sir, interrupted Ensign Park from the sensor array, the alien vessel is small, single occupant according to our scans. Life support readings suggest they're running low on consumables. Whatever brought them here, they traveled a long way. Any signs of hidden weapons or escort vessels? Negative, Admiral. The ship appears to be a standard diplomatic courier. Light defensive shields, minimal armament, designed for speed rather than combat. Shouldn't consider the options. Earth's isolation had served them well, allowing humanity to develop without interference. But isolation also meant missing opportunities to learn about threats that might be approaching from the vast reaches of space. Open a channel, she decided. Let's hear what they have to say. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a blue-scaled humanoid figure with large, expressive eyes. The alien looked exhausted and desperate, but maintained formal diplomatic posture. Greetings, humans of Earth, the alien began, speaking in accented but clear English. I am Ambassador Kythera of the Zephyrian Republic. I come before you with urgent request for aid in matter of galactic importance. I'm Admiral Chun of Earth Solar Defense Force. Chun replied carefully. Ambassador, Earth maintains strict neutrality in galactic affairs. We don't involve ourselves in external conflicts. Admiral, please, you must understand. Kythera's composure cracked slightly, revealing the desperation beneath. My people face complete extinction. An enemy called the Vrex swarm approaches our homeworld. They have destroyed 17 civilizations. The Galactic Federation cannot stop them. You are our final hope. Chen exchanged glances with her staff. Ambassador, why would Earth be able to help when this Galactic Federation cannot? By your own admission, they represent multiple civilizations with combined resources far exceeding ours. Because you are Deathworlders, Kythera said simply. Your planet is classified as one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. Your species evolved capabilities that peaceful civilizations cannot match. The Federation fears you almost as much as they fear the Vrex. This revelation caused a stir in the command center. Lieutenant Commander Martinez pulled up Earth's environmental data. Admiral, if their classification system considers Earth a death world, that would explain their reaction 200 years ago. Most species probably evolve on much more stable, safer planets. Chen studied the alien ambassador's desperate expression. Tell me about this Vrek swarm. What exactly are we dealing with? Kethera transmitted data files containing everything the Federation knew about the Vreks. The information painted a picture of a biomechanical species that consumed entire ecosystems, adapted rapidly to any defense, and had never been successfully stopped. 50 million ships, Chen read from the report. Self-repairing, self-improving, operating as a collective intelligence. They've been expanding for over 1,000 years. Admiral, said Dr. Yates, the station's xenobiology expert, studying the transmitted data. These creatures appear to be silicon-carbon hybrids with cybernetic integration. They're essentially living ships that can evolve in real time. It's actually quite fascinating from a scientific standpoint. Fascinating and terrifying, Chen corrected. Ambassador, even if we wanted to help, what could one planet do against a force that defeated 17 civilizations? I do not know, Kethera admitted, but the Federation has exhausted every conventional approach. Your species represents something unconventional. Perhaps unconventional problems require unconventional solutions. Chen turned to her tactical officer. Commander Blake, theoretical question. If we faced an enemy like this Vrek swarm, what would our approach be? Blake considered the question seriously. Well, Admiral, conventional fleet engagement would be suicide. We need to think asymmetrically. Hit and run tactics, technological force multipliers, psychological warfare, environmental advantages, everything they wouldn't expect from a civilized military. The kind of warfare that civilized species might consider too brutal or unethical, Chun mused. Exactly. We'd have to fight dirty, use every advantage, and probably employ tactics that would horrify most peaceful civilizations. Chun looked back at the screen, where Kethera waited with desperate patience. Ambassador, I need to consult with my government. Can you give me timeline information? My homeworld has 37 standard cycles before the Vreks arrive. The journey from Earth to Zephyria requires 16 cycles with your fastest ships, assuming they can match our diplomatic courier speed. That gives us 21 days to decide and act, Chun calculated. Ambassador, I'm going to grant you temporary sanctuary at Luna Station while we consider your request. But I want complete transparency. All Federation records about the Vreks, your military capabilities, everything. Of course, Admiral. I will provide whatever information you require. 6 hours later, Chun stood in an encrypted conference room speaking directly with Earth's President, Secretary of Defense, and the heads of various military branches via quantum encrypted communication. Let me understand this correctly, said President Harrison. An alien species wants us to fight a war against something called the Vrek swarm because we're considered too dangerous for normal diplomatic contact. That's the situation, Mr. President, Chun confirmed. The alien ambassador has provided extensive documentation. The threat appears genuine, and their desperation is real. Secretary of Defense Williams studied the tactical analysis. Admiral, our best military minds have reviewed the data. The consensus is that conventional engagement would be hopeless. However, several unconventional strategies show promise, such as, the President inquired. General Morrison of the Space Marine Corps leaned forward. Mr. President, the Vreks appear to be primarily a space-based species. They're adapted for zero-gravity combat and ship-to-ship warfare. But they have weaknesses. They require specific environmental conditions for their biomechanical integration. They've never faced an enemy that could threaten their home base. You're suggesting we attack their source? Among other things. Also, they've never encountered human psychological warfare, human technological adaptability, or human tactical unpredictability. Every species they've defeated has fought them conventionally. Admiral Zhang of the Space Navy added, the Federation species appear to conduct warfare like a chess game, with established rules and predictable patterns. Humans fight like humans. We cheat, we improvise, we use whatever works. President Harrison was quiet for several moments. The moral question, do we have the right to remain isolated when we might be able to save 12 billion lives? Sir, said Dr. Patterson, the president's science advisor, there's another consideration. If this Vrex swarm continues expanding, they'll eventually reach Earth anyway. Fighting them now, when we have allies and information, might be better than facing them alone later. How long to mobilize? The president asked. General Morrison consulted his tablet. We can have a full expeditionary force ready in 72 hours. 5,000 Space Marines, supporting fleet elements, and our newest technological developments. What about revealing our capabilities to this Galactic Federation? Sir, Chen interjected, based on the ambassador's reaction to Earth being classified as a death world, I believe our capabilities are already somewhat known. The question is whether we choose to use them. President Harrison made his decision. Admiral Chun informed the ambassador that Earth will provide assistance. However, we do this our way with our tactics and under human command. If they want Deathworlders, they get all that comes with that designation. Back on Luna Station, Kythera nearly collapsed with relief when Chun delivered the news. Admiral, you cannot imagine what this means to my people. Ambassador, there's something you need to understand, Chun said seriously. Human warfare is different from what you're accustomed to. We're going to employ methods that might disturb you. We don't fight fair, we don't follow conventional rules, and we will use every possible advantage. I understand, Admiral. I don't think you do, but you will. Chen turned to her staff. Signal Earth Command. Operation Deathworld is approved. Begin fleet mobilization immediately. As the human fleet began preparing for departure, Kythera transmitted a message to the Zephyrian government. Hope exists. The Deathworlders have agreed to help. Prepare for unconventional salvation. She didn't realize how accurately she had just described what was about to unfold. Humanity was preparing for war, and the galaxy was about to learn why peaceful civilizations had classified Earth's inhabitants as too dangerous for normal contact. The Vrex swarm continued their approach to Zephyria, expecting another routine conquest. They had no way of knowing that for the first time in their 1,000-year expansion, they were about to face an enemy that had evolved not on a peaceful garden world, but on a planet that had spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything that lived on it. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyria system like a force of nature given form and purpose. Ambassador Kythera watched from the bridge of the flagship Indomitable as 200 human vessels arranged themselves in formations that defied everything she understood about space combat. Admiral Chun, she said hesitantly, your fleet formation appears chaotic. There's no clear command structure visible, no organized battle lines. Chun smiled grimly. That's the point, Ambassador. The Vrex have studied Federation tactics for 1,000 years. They know exactly what to expect from organized formations. What they've never seen is controlled chaos. Captain Maria Santos, Chen's tactical coordinator, pointed to the holographic display showing the human ships. Each vessel operates semi-independently while maintaining quantum-entangled communication links. From the outside, it looks random. In reality, it's like a school of fish or a flock of birds, each unit responding to local conditions while maintaining overall group cohesion. Kythera studied the display with growing amazement. The human ships moved like living creatures rather than mechanical constructs. How do you coordinate such complexity? Experience, Chen replied simply. Every human grows up playing games that require split-second coordination with multiple teammates. We're adapted for team sports, pack hunting, tribal warfare. It's in our nature. The bridge crew worked with an efficiency that stunned the Zephyrian ambassador. There were no formal protocols, no rigid chains of command. Instead, information flowed organically between specialists who anticipated each other's needs with uncanny precision. Vrex fleet detected, announced Lieutenant Commander Singh from the sensor array. Distance, 47 million kilometers, and closing. Estimated contact in 6 hours, 32 minutes. Composition analysis? Chen requested. 52 million individual units, Admiral. They've grown since the Federation's last encounter. Ships range from destroyer class to fortress class, with approximately 30% appearing to be new variants we've never seen before. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the fleet's xenobiologist, frowned at her readings. Admiral, the biosignatures are fascinating. Each ship appears to be a living organism, but they're all connected through some form of quantum neural network. It's like fighting a single creature with 50 million limbs. Any apparent weaknesses? Chen asked. Actually, yes. Their strength is also their weakness. The neural network allows instant coordination, but it also means they share sensory input. Overwhelming one part of the network could cascade through the entire system. Chen turned to her weapons coordinator. Commander Park, are the psychological warfare systems online? All systems green, Admiral. Hypersonic disruptors, quantum static generators, and the new neural feedback weapons are ready for deployment. Kethera looked confused. Psychological warfare? Against machines? They're not just machines, Dr. Harper explained. They're biomechanical hybrids with organic neural components. That makes them vulnerable to sensory overload, confusion techniques, and psychological stress. But why would machines experience psychological stress? Chen answered, because they think. Anything that thinks can be confused, intimidated, or driven to make mistakes. Fear isn't just an emotion, Ambassador. It's a survival mechanism that affects decision-making in any thinking creature. The first engagement began at maximum range, with the Vrex launching their standard probe attack. 1,000 smaller vessels accelerated toward the human fleet at tremendous speed, designed to test defenses and gather tactical information. Interesting, observed Commander Blake for the tactical station. They're using the exact same approach they used against the Corvian defense fleet. No adaptation for facing an unknown enemy. They're overconfident, Chen realized. 1,000 years of victory has made them predictable. All ships implement Protocol 7. Instead of meeting the Vrex probe attack head-on, the human fleet scattered like startled birds, each ship moving in seemingly random directions. The Vrex probes, expecting organized resistance, found themselves chasing individual targets that led them on complex dances through three-dimensional space. What are your ships doing? Kethera asked, watching in bewilderment as human vessels appeared to flee in all directions. Matador Protocol Santos Explained. We're not running away. We're drawing them into a trap. Each ship is leading its pursuers to a predetermined intercept point. The trap was sprung simultaneously across a volume of space larger than most star systems. As the Vrex probes reached their intercept points, hidden human ships emerged from sensor shadows, delivering precisely coordinated strikes that destroyed the entire probe force in under 30 seconds. Impossible, Kethera breathed. You destroyed 1,000 Vrex units without losing a single ship. Patience and preparation, Chen replied. We've been studying their tactics since you provided the data. They're excellent at adapting to direct resistance, but terrible at dealing with misdirection. The main Vrex fleet's response was swift and brutal. 50 million ships accelerated toward the human position at maximum speed, abandoning all pretense of tactical subtlety in favor of overwhelming force. Here they come, Singh reported. Full assault formation. They're going to try to steamroll us. Admiral, Dr. Harper called out urgently. I'm detecting massive neural activity spikes across the Vrex fleet. They're angry. Actually, genuinely angry. I've never seen emotional responses this strong from a collective intelligence. Chen grinned fiercely. Good. Angry enemies make mistakes. All ships implement the Hornet's Nest. The human fleet suddenly stopped retreating and charged directly toward the approaching Vrex armada. But as they closed distance, each human ship began releasing clouds of what appeared to be debris. What are those objects? Kethera asked. Autonomous attack drones, Santos explained. Each one is about the size of a soccer ball, equipped with quantum processors and molecular disruptors. We call them Hornets. How many did you deploy? Santos consulted her display. Approximately 2 million units from each ship. Total deployment, 400 million Hornets. The mathematical impossibility of the statement struck Kethera like a physical blow. 400 million? That outnumbers the Vrex fleet by 8 to 1. Quantity has a quality all its own, Chin quoted. The Vrex are used to fighting ship-to-ship engagements. They've never faced swarm tactics. The Hornets engaged the Vrex fleet like a plague of mechanical insects. Each drone was too small to be effectively targeted by capital ship weapons, but large enough to carry weapons capable of damaging Vrexal systems. More importantly, they were equipped with the psychological warfare systems Dr. Harper had mentioned. Neural feedback weapons activated, Commander Park reported. The Hornets are transmitting random sensory data directly into the Vrex neural network. Chaos, confusion, and sensory overload across their entire fleet. The effect was immediate and devastating. The perfectly coordinated Vrex formation began to dissolve as individual ships started firing on targets that weren't there, following navigation commands that led nowhere, and responding to threats that existed only in their artificially stimulated nervous systems. They're fighting each other, Kethera observed in amazement as Vrex ships began firing on their own units. Neural feedback cascade, Dr. Harper explained with scientific satisfaction. We've essentially given their collective consciousness the equivalent of a massive seizure. Their shared sensory network is now sharing hallucinations instead of accurate information. But the Vrex were not helpless. Their adaptive capabilities began to counter the human tactics, developing filtering systems to screen out the false sensory input. The neural feedback weapons became less effective as the collective intelligence learned to distinguish real threats from artificial ones. They're adapting faster than expected, Commander Park warned. Hornets are becoming less effective. The Vrex are regaining coordination. Phase 2, Chun ordered calmly. The human capital ships, which had been holding back during the Hornet assault, suddenly accelerated to combat speed. But instead of engaging the Vrex fleet directly, they began targeting something entirely unexpected, the empty space around the Vrex formations. Admiral, Kethera said in confusion, your ships appear to be firing at nothing. Quanto mean santos explained. Invisible until activated, scattered throughout this system over the past 6 hours while the Vrex were focused on our fleet movements. The empty space around the Vrex fleet suddenly erupted in explosions as millions of quantum mines detonated simultaneously. Each mine was small, but the cumulative effect created massive spatial distortions that tore through the biomechanical ships like tissue paper. 15 million Vrex units destroyed, Singh reported with satisfaction. Enemy fleet strength reduced to approximately 37 million units. But instead of celebrating, Chen's expression grew more serious. That was the easy part. Now, they know we're not going to fight conventionally. They'll adapt their strategies accordingly. The surviving Vrex fleet began to demonstrate why they had conquered 17 civilizations. Their biomechanical nature allowed rapid evolution of new tactics. Within minutes, they had developed countermeasures for the human strategies, their ships growing new defensive capabilities and sensor systems. Admiral, Dr. Harper reported with concern, they're evolving in real time. New armor configurations, enhanced sensors, improved coordination protocols. They're becoming immune to our previous tactics. Expected, Chen replied grimly. That's why we have backup plans. Commander Blake, initiate the Prometheus protocol. Ma'am, are you certain? Once we use that, there's no going back to conventional warfare. Chen looked at the tactical display showing the adapting Vrex fleet. Ambassador Kethera, what I'm about to order goes beyond normal rules of warfare. Are you prepared for that? Kethera thought of her homeworld of 12 billion Zephyrians depending on this desperate gambit. Admiral, my people are facing extinction. There are no rules in extinction. Chen nodded grimly. Prometheus protocol is authorized. Deploy the nanophages. Deep within the human fleet, specialized vessels began releasing clouds of microscopic machines designed to rewrite matter at the molecular level. The nanophages spread through space like an invisible tide, seeking out the biomechanical components of Vrex ships and beginning the process of converting them into something entirely different. What are those things doing? Kythera asked, watching as Vrek's ships began to change color and shape. They're turning the Vrek's fleet into raw materials, Chen explained matter-of-factly. The nanophages disassemble biomechanical structures and reassemble them into whatever we program them to create. In this case, they're being converted into defensive barriers. The horror of watching an enemy fleet being literally consumed and transformed struck Kythera with full force. This wasn't just warfare, it was complete annihilation followed by recycling of the remains. Now you understand, Chen said quietly, why the Federation considers us too dangerous for normal contact. We don't just defeat enemies. We erase them and use their remains for our purposes. The battle for Zephyria was about to enter its final, most terrifying phase. The nanophage attack created a sight that would haunt Ambassador Kythera for the rest of her long life. Vrek's ships, which had seemed invulnerable moments before, began dissolving like sugar in rain. Their biomechanical hulls writhed and transformed as the microscopic machines rewrote their molecular structure. "Dear stars," Kythera whispered, watching through the viewport as millions of enemy vessels were consumed and rebuilt into massive defensive walls. "Your species doesn't just wage war. You reshape reality itself." Admiral Chun stood calmly beside her, watching the transformation with the same expression she might use to observe a routine maintenance operation. Necessity, Ambassador. The Vreks adapt to conventional weapons and tactics, so we use unconventional ones. Dr. Harper's voice carried excitement from her science station. "Admiral, the nanophages are working better than expected. The biomechanical nature of Vrek's ships actually makes them more susceptible to molecular restructuring. We've converted approximately 8 million units into barrier materials. But even as the nanophages consumed their fleet, the surviving Vreks demonstrated why they had remained undefeated for a millennium. The collective intelligence began broadcasting electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the nanophages' programming, while simultaneously evolving new hull compositions resistant to molecular manipulation. "They're adapting again," Commander Blake reported. "The nanophages are losing effectiveness. The Vreks are developing immunity faster than we anticipated." "How many units remain?" Chen asked. "Approximately 29 million ships, Admiral. Still enough to destroy any conventional fleet." Chen turned to her communications officer. "Signal the secondary fleet. Time for Phase 3. Kythera looked confused. "Secondary fleet? I thought these 200 ships were your entire force." Chen smiled grimly. "Ambassador, you asked for Deathworlders. Did you really think we'd commit our full strength without backup plans?" Space around Zephyria suddenly filled with new contacts as another 300 human ships emerged from hyperspace. But these vessels looked different from the first fleet, their hulls covered in strange geometric patterns that seemed to hurt the eyes to look at directly. "Stealth fleet decloak successful," reported Captain Torres from the newly arrived flagship Nemesis. "Quantum camouflage held perfectly. The Vreks never detected our approach." "What kind of stealth technology allows 300 ships to remain completely hidden?" Kythera asked in amazement. "Dimensional phasing," Dr. Harper explained. "The ships weren't actually in our dimension during the battle. They were operating in parallel space, observing through quantum entanglement while remaining completely undetectable." Commander Santos studied the tactical display with professional appreciation. "Perfect positioning. The stealth fleet has the Vreks surrounded in three-dimensional space. Classic human pack hunting tactics adapted for space combat. But the true horror of human warfare was about to be revealed. Instead of engaging the Vreks with conventional weapons, the stealth fleet began targeting something far more fundamental: the quantum fabric of space itself. "Reality distortion weapons online," Captain Torres reported, targeting Vrek's fleet cohesion at the fundamental level. "Wait," Kythera said, a chill running through her scales. "You're weaponizing the basic structure of a universe?" "Local space only," Chen assured her. "We're not monsters, Ambassador. We limit our reality manipulation to the immediate combat zone. The effect was immediate and utterly devastating. Vrek's ships simply ceased to exist in coherent form as the laws of physics around them were temporarily rewritten. Some vessels found themselves existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Others discovered that their matter had been transformed into energy, while still others experienced time flowing backward. 15 million units neutralized through quantum dissolution, Torres reported. Enemy fleet strength now at 14 million units. But the Vrek's response revealed intelligence and adaptability that made them truly terrifying opponents. Instead of continuing to fight conventionally, they began to merge their remaining ships into larger composite entities, sacrificing numbers for concentrated capability. They're forming superorganisms, Dr. Harper observed with scientific fascination. 14 million individual ships becoming approximately 50,000 massive composite entities. Each one is roughly the size of small moon. Chun frowned at the tactical implications. Analysis. Can our weapons affect targets of that size? Unknown, Admiral. We've never tested reality distortion weapons against targets exceeding planetary mass. The merged Vrek's entities began to demonstrate capabilities that defied everything humanity thought they knew about space combat. They moved through dimensions like dolphins through water, appeared in multiple locations simultaneously, and began generating gravitational fields strong enough to affect nearby planets. Admiral, Commander Blake said urgently, sensors indicate the Vrek's superorganisms are preparing some kind of massive energy discharge. Power readings are off our scales. Evacuation protocols for Zephyria? Chen asked. Kethera's heart stopped. You're abandoning my world? Never, Chen replied firmly. I'm asking about evacuation as a backup plan. Humans don't abandon allies. We just like to have contingencies. The Zephyrian government had indeed prepared evacuation ships, but they could only save a fraction of the population. The knowledge that 12 billion souls depended on this battle weighed heavily on everyone aboard the human flagship. Time to energy discharge, Chen requested. Approximately 18 minutes, Admiral. Chen made a decision that would either save a civilization or doom humanity to galactic infamy. All ships, implement final protocol Omega. The bridge fell silent. Every human officer understood what Omega protocol meant, and the weight of that knowledge showed on their faces. Admiral, Captain Santos said quietly, Omega protocol requires unanimous consent from all fleet commanders. Are you certain about this authorization? The alternative is 12 billion dead civilians, Chen replied. Give me conference calls with all ship commanders. Within minutes, 200 ship captains appeared on holographic displays throughout the bridge. Chen looked at each face, seeing her own grim determination reflected back. Commanders, you all understand the situation. Conventional weapons have proven insufficient. Reality distortion weapons are reaching their limits. We're facing an enemy that adapts faster than we can develop new tactics. Captain Morrison of the destroyer Relentless spoke first. Admiral, we swore an oath to protect innocent life. If Omega Protocol is our only option, then we use it. One by one, every captain gave the same response. Unanimous consent for humanity's most terrible weapon. Authorization confirmed, Chun announced. Omega Protocol is active. Deploy the Stellar Manipulator. From the heart of the human fleet, a device no larger than a fighter craft began to move towards Zephiria's star. Its appearance was deceptively simple, but the technology it contained represented the absolute pinnacle of human engineering. Ambassador, Chun said quietly, what you're about to see is why your Federation classifies humanity as an extreme danger to galactic stability. We're about to demonstrate why Deathworlders are feared more than the Vreks. The Stellar Manipulator reached its target position and began to work. The star itself, a massive fusion reactor that had burned for billions of years, suddenly began to change. Solar flares erupted in precisely controlled patterns, creating directed energy beams of unimaginable intensity. You're using the star as a weapon, Kethera realized with growing horror and awe. Stellar engineering, Dr. Harper confirmed. We're temporarily converting the star into a focused energy projector. The power output exceeds the total energy production of most galactic civilizations. The directed stellar energy struck the Vrex superorganisms with force that made their previous adaptations irrelevant. Matter at the atomic level couldn't withstand exposure to the core temperature of a star delivered in concentrated beams. Target destruction confirmed. Torres reported with satisfaction. All Vrex superorganisms eliminated. No survivors detected. But the cost of victory was immediately apparent. Zephiria's star, stressed beyond its normal parameters, began to show signs of instability. Solar storms erupted across its surface, and gravitational fluctuations threatened to disrupt planetary orbits. Stellar containment protocols, Chun ordered immediately. Begin emergency stellar stabilization. The stellar manipulator reversed its process, carefully dampening the artificial solar activity and restoring the star to normal function. The operation took 6 tense hours, during which the fate of the Zephyrian solar system hung in the balance. Star stabilization complete, Dr. Harper finally reported. Zephiria's sun will return to normal parameters within 72 hours. No permanent damage detected. Kethera collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed by what she had witnessed. You saved my world by threatening to destroy our star, then saved our star after using it as a weapon. What manner of beings are you? Deathworlders, Chun replied simply. We evolved on a planet that spent billions of years trying to kill us. We learned to use everything as a tool, even the forces that could destroy us. The victory was complete, but the implications were staggering. Humanity had demonstrated capabilities that exceeded even their own classified files. They hadn't just defeated the Vrex. They had erased them so thoroughly that not a single intact molecule remained. Admiral, Commander Blake said quietly, we're receiving communications from the Galactic Federation. Multiple species are requesting immediate diplomatic contact. Chun sighed. I imagine they are. Ambassador, you came seeking aid from Deathworlders. I hope you're prepared for the consequences of getting what you asked for. The human fleet began to withdraw from Zephyrian space, leaving behind a grateful civilization and a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species from the forbidden death world called Earth. The age of human isolation was ending, whether humanity wanted it to or not. 6 months after the Battle of Zephyria, Ambassador Kethera found herself standing in the same Galactic Federation chambers where her desperate plea for help had been met with cold calculations and political hesitation. But now everything had changed. The chamber was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from 47 different species had traveled across the galaxy to attend this emergency session. The usual diplomatic protocols had been abandoned in favor of urgent, sometimes heated discussions about the implications of humanity's intervention. The question before us, declared Elder Morth of the Ancient Reach, is not whether humanity saves Zephyria. The question is what their methods mean for the future of galactic civilization. General Thaxon, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly with stress, gestured toward the holographic displays showing the battle recordings. Respected delegates, we must acknowledge the facts. Humanity eliminated 52 million Vrex units without losing a single ship. They accomplished in 8 hours what our combined fleets could not do in a millennium. By weaponizing a star, shouted Representative Quinn of the Pacifican Union, her tentacles writhing with agitation. They demonstrated the ability to destroy entire solar systems on a whim. How is this different from the threat the Vrex posed? Chancellor Vex's mechanical voice cut through the rising arguments. The difference, Representative Quinn, is intent. The Vrex consumed civilizations. The humans saved one. Datakeeper Zan's cybernetic implants glowed as she accessed the classified files. I've completed analysis of the human combat capabilities demonstrated at Zephyria. The technological implications are disturbing. Nanophage molecular restructuring, dimensional phase manipulation, reality distortion weapons, and stellar engineering. Any one of these technologies exceeds our current understanding of what's possible. More disturbing, added the ethereal collective representative, pulsing with deep orange hues, is that they deployed these capabilities with the casual efficiency of routine operations. This suggests that what we witnessed represents their standard military doctrine, not experimental weapons. Kethera listened to the debate with growing frustration. Finally, she rose to address the assembly. Honored delegates, I was there. I witnessed firsthand what humanity accomplished. Yes, their methods were terrifying. Yes, their capabilities exceed our understanding. But 12 billion of my people are alive because they acted when no one else would. And 12 billion people are now under the protection of a species that treats stellar manipulation as a standard tactic, countered Representative Vorth of the crystalline hegemon. What happens when human interests conflict with ours? What happens when we become the enemy they decide to eliminate? Admiral Chen's voice suddenly filled the chamber as she appeared on the main communications display, broadcasting from the human flagship still patrolling the edge of Federation space. Members of the Galactic Federation, Chun began formally, I've been monitoring your debate. Perhaps it's time for humanity to address your concerns directly. The chamber fell silent. This was the first direct communication from Earth since the battle, and everyone understood the historical significance of the moment. Admiral Chen, Elder Morth responded with careful diplomacy. We appreciate your intervention at Zephyria. However, the methods your species employed have raised questions about future galactic stability. Chen's expression remained neutral. I understand your concerns, Elder Morth. You're afraid of us. That's actually a reasonable response, given what you've witnessed. The blunt honesty of the statement sent ripples of unease through the assembled delegates. However, Chun continued, fear should be tempered with understanding. Humanity has existed in galactic isolation for 2 centuries. During that time, we've conquered our own violent impulses through careful development of ethics and restraint. The capabilities you witnessed at Zephyria are matched by equally strong moral constraints. General Thaxon leaned forward. Admiral, can you provide assurance that humanity will not use these capabilities against peaceful civilizations? I can provide more than assurance, General. I can provide proof. The main display switched to show sensor readings from a battle. Chun highlighted specific moments in the engagement where human forces could have employed more devastating tactics, but chose restraint instead. Observe the nanophage deployment, Chun explained. We could have programmed them to target organic matter, essentially dissolving every living thing in the Vrex fleet. Instead, we limited them to mechanical components only. The Vrex crew members were given time to evacuate before their ships were restructured. Datakeeper Zan's implants flickered as she processed this information. The readings confirm Admiral Chen's statement. Approximately 4 million Vrex individuals were allowed to escape in emergency pods before ship dissolution. You saved enemy lives? Representative Quinn asked in amazement. We're not monsters, Chen replied simply. We're soldiers. There's a difference between eliminating a threat and committing genocide. Chancellor Vex accessed his analysis protocols. Admiral, the stellar manipulation device you employed could theoretically destabilize stars throughout this entire sector. Why should we trust that such a weapon won't be used for conquest? Chen's expression grew serious. Because, Chancellor, we're going to share the technology with you. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions and objections in a dozen languages while others sat in stunned silence. Impossible, General Thaxon declared. No species shares weapons technology of that magnitude. Deathworlders do, Chen responded calmly. We share dangerous knowledge because we understand that knowledge without wisdom is the true danger. We're prepared to establish joint research facilities, combined training programs, and mutual oversight protocols. Ambassador Kethera felt tears forming in her eyes. Admiral, you're offering to teach us everything. Not everything, Chen clarified. We're offering to teach you how to defend yourselves and others, how to use power responsibly, how to be strong enough that you never again have to watch civilizations die while calculating the political cost of intervention. Elder Mortha's ancient voice carried wonder. This is unprecedented in galactic history. No dominant species has ever voluntarily shared strategic advantages. Maybe that's the problem, Chen suggested. Maybe the galaxy has been stuck in the same patterns for too long. The Vrex succeeded because they encountered predictable responses to their aggression. They never faced a species willing to break conventional rules. Dr. Harper's voice joined the conversation from the science stations. We're also prepared to share defensive technologies. Force field generators that can protect entire planets, early warning systems that can detect threats across galactic distances, medical advances that could extend lifespans for all species. What do you ask in return? Chancellor Vex inquired with mechanical precision. Partnership, Chen replied. Not dominance, not tribute, not submission. True partnership between equals working toward common goals. Representative Quinn's tentacles had stilled, indicating deep thought. Admiral, assuming we accept your proposal, how do we prevent the emergence of another Vrex-type threat in the future? By ensuring that no civilization faces extinction alone, Chen answered. By building a galaxy where desperate ambassadors don't have to travel to forbidden worlds seeking help from species too dangerous for normal contact. Kethera rose again to address the assembly. Honored delegates, 6 months ago, I came before you begging for help that you could not provide. Today, humanity offers not just aid, but the tools to provide that aid for ourselves. This is our chance to become more than we are. General Thaxon studied his tactical displays. The strategic implications are enormous. With shared human technology, the Federation could become capable of protecting any member world from any threat. But at the cost of fundamentally changing what the Federation represents, pointed out the ethereal collective representative. We have been a peaceful alliance. This would transform us into something more militant. Sometimes, Chen observed, peace must be defended through strength. The Vrex succeeded because peaceful civilizations couldn't match their aggression. We're offering you the tools to ensure that never happens again. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. One by one, the assembled delegates began to see the wisdom in humanity's proposal. The alternative was to remain vulnerable to the next Vrex-type threat. Finally, Elder Morth called for a formal vote. All those in favor of accepting humanity's partnership proposal and establishing joint defense initiatives? The response was overwhelming. 43 species voted in favor, with only 4 abstentions and no opposing votes. The motion carries, Elder Morth announced. Humanity is formally invited to join the Galactic Federation as a full partner species. Chen smiled for the first time during the conversation. We accept the invitation, Elder Morth. Humanity looks forward to building a safer galaxy together. As the communication ended and the assembly began to disperse, Kethera reflected on the extraordinary chain of events she had set in motion. Her desperate journey to Earth had saved not just her world, but potentially every world in the galaxy. General Thaxon approached her as the chamber emptied. Ambassador, you realize what you've done, don't you? You've changed the fundamental balance of galactic power. No, General. I didn't change anything. I simply recognized what was already true. Power without compassion creates monsters like the Vrex. Compassion without power creates victims. Humanity offered us the chance to be neither monsters nor victims. 6 months later, the first joint Human Federation research facility opened on the neutral world of Sanctuary Prime. Human and alien scientists worked side by side, developing technologies that made the galaxy safer for all civilizations. The Vrex swarm became a historical footnote, remembered mainly as the threat that forced the galaxy to evolve beyond its comfortable limitations. Humanity's integration into the galactic community proceeded smoothly, helped by their willingness to share both knowledge and responsibility. And in the archives of a dozen different civilizations, scholars recorded the same conclusion. Sometimes salvation comes not from those who follow the rules, but from those willing to rewrite them entirely. Ambassador Kithura, now serving as the first Zephyrian representative to Earth, often stood in the observation decks of Luna Station, watching human and alien vessels working together in the void between worlds. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. They had shared their strength while maintaining their humanity. The galaxy was no longer the same. It was stronger, more unified, and infinitely safer. And it had all begun with a single desperate plea from an ambassador who refused to accept that some problems had no solutions. In the end, the galaxy had appealed for aid, and humanity's Deathworlders had indeed arrived. But they had brought more than just salvation. They had brought the possibility of a future where no civilization would ever again face extinction alone.